Hello, my overcomer dads out there. Welcome to Diversity Dad, where we highlight the unique stories of dads and embrace their daily struggle in becoming a great father. I'm your host, Jamel Chukwueke, and please join me in welcoming our guest today, Kellen Coleman. Kellen Coleman is a business owner of Coleman Public Relations and a consulting firm where he manages various clients from small businesses, media, and government. Kellen was born in Oaktown, Oakland, California. He got the traveling bug around 12 years old and has been traveling all around the globe ever since. He's visited 10 countries, 3 continents, and he graduated with his bachelor's and master's degree from Grambling. Kellen is a member of the Thai Bar 100, Emerald Roads, and Yacht Club, and is from Cameroon, West Africa. Kellen has 2 daughters, London and Sydney, who are 7 and 3. And his wife works a lot of hours, so he is the caregiver. And he has an interesting story to tell us about his journey as far as being a caregiver, being a man of color, being in that role, and his perception of his narrative and what the perception is from a media standpoint of his role in his family. Very interesting interview, and I'm so happy for you all to be here with me to experience it. Let me know your thoughts on this interview. Email me at team@diversitydad.com. Look at our website, hit us up, let us know what you think. And without further ado, here's our boy, Kellen Coleman.
Welcome to Diversity Dad, showcasing the stories of triumph over challenges fathers face to provide the best opportunities for their children and the drive to give that same motivation to others. We are all Diversity Dads. Now welcome your host and fellow Diversity Dad, Jamel Chukwueke.
Diversity dads out there, Jamel Chukwueke back in action, back with you. And I have our special guest, Kellen Coleman, a.k.a. Kellen Cass, children's book author. Kellen, what is going on? How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on, Jamel. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful, man. Just so happy to have you on Diversity Dad. So you're a children's book author, a father. Let us know how this came about, man, as far as just being a children's book author, and how are you doing it with being a dad as well? That's crazy. What's the story?
Well, the book came about because my wife and I, when we met 15 years ago, just dating, we liked to travel, and travel never stopped when we had kids. We went to different places and maybe stayed more in the States than out of the country. But when I had the kids, I really wanted to document all of our travels, especially after my wife, she was doing her residency interviews, and that's what led us to come to the University of Washington. And I wanted to document that. 4 years prior to that, I had already created a page of a book idea that I wanted, but it wasn't until every great thing comes out of a tragedy. And so my mother was really sick and she ended up passing. And I wanted to document my kids' travel. And someone that I showed it to said, you know what? I don't think there's another book out there with 2 Black girls traveling and everyday real travels. You always have some type of fantasy rabbit doing something, but Barbie goes to the beach and so do we. So I said, you know what? We're going to make a book. We're going to create a publishing house. And we traveled to over 22 cities in less than about 2 months. And I had a book. And the hardest part was finding the illustrator and then being able to provide and pay for it because it cost a lot of money to do. Being a dad, it's all part of it. I see this as a legacy that my kids, they'll keep going if they so wish to. My 7-year-old, London, has already created her first book of a puzzle book. It's about 30, 40 pages of a puzzle book. And it's going to be, kind of an additional read for our first book out. So it'll be our second book on Fomenke Publishing. And I'm just excited to push this out because there are a lot of Black books out there. There's a lot of books of color that you can find, but what I find is a lot of them have to deal with civil rights. A lot of them aren't really kid friendly. And it's because adults are writing them with an adult mind. My wife and I, she co-wrote this book with me. We wrote it with the children's mind. We kept it real simple and real true based on our daughter's experiences.
Kellen, that's amazing, man. As far as just you just documenting your story and sharing it with the world and just traveling to 22 different cities, man. I know you had to be tired, right?
I love to travel. I don't need new shoes, but I could really like a new trip, and I'll go anywhere. And I wasn't tired because we were really documenting our story. And that is so important that we as Black people, as Africans, as whatever you want to call yourself, any type of minority, we need to document our stories more and control our narrative. The media, the propaganda out there controls the minority narrative to the point where, people only know us based on what they see on TV. So we're showing that we travel, we go to the space station, the zoos, the children's museums, and we also eat our traditional Cameroonian West African cuisine. And this is a book that kids of all colors can enjoy because the world is diverse and they need to start now. So yeah, was I tired being in hotel rooms? I'm so used to that and I love it. And with the kids, it's a different type of challenge, but I loved it.
Kellen, that's just dope, man. I love it. I love it. So I don't even think that you said it, and you may have just amongst, I'm so excited just to talk to you. What is the name of the book?
The book is called London and Sydney, Explore the World, and this is based on the Texas adventure. We lived in Texas for 4 years. We saw all the major cities, and we lived in a smaller city that most people never heard of, Lubbock, Texas. So we were always traveling to experience the bigger cities while there. And it's on Amazon. It's also, you can get it at your, whether it's Barnes and Nobles, and you can also for free request it from your library and tell them I would like the London and Sydney book. And, there's different ways to request that at different libraries, but you research our ISBN, which is on our website, which is online, and you request it. And I'll give you a tip. If you try to request it from Amazon, some libraries won't take it from there. So you really have to go to our website and get the ISBN that's on there for libraries. And I made it simple, very basic website, and you give that to them in your library. 9 out of 10 times will order the book if you want to see it for free. And if you want to purchase it, fine. Get it on Amazon right now. That's the best price that you're going to find on it at this moment.
Very cool, man. And Diversity Dads, we'll give all that information out of where you can pick it up towards the end of this interview. So Kellen, man, you are documenting, leaving a legacy. You have all this experience as far as just publishing and writing these lovely stories and mixing with your personal life journey that you've been on. But what makes you a diversity dad with all that mixed in?
What makes me a diversity dad is being the primary caregiver because my wife works 80 to 100 hours a week, like every other resident in this country, and not paid for that work, minimum wage payments. And that's just part of being a resident. Is being a primary caregiver, being an entrepreneur, running a PR and consulting firm, and, now starting the publishing company. And it's all a team effort. Couldn't do it by myself. But it's being able to wear multiple hats. And, whether it's in 10 minutes, an hour, or a day, you go from entrepreneur to dad. You go from being the disciplinarian to being the person who has to listen. I have 2 girls, so I always have to listen. That's a skill that I've had to learn. And so having to be diverse and being able to multitask and also plan those trips to the museum, to the water park, while getting my work done, making sure payroll is done. I mean, my whole day is diverse, and I'm never upset about it because this is what I chose, and I love doing it every day.
That's amazing, man. I love it. You've mentioned, as far as just being diverse and the narrative as far as just what's out in the media, and being a man of color, it is not seen as the norm to be a caregiver. The norm, unfortunately, is having a Tarzan kind of narrative behind what we're doing as African-American males in the society, unfortunately. So what message are you giving as far as just to kind of eliminate that narrative? And are you relaying that to your daughters, or are you waiting until like a certain time to relay that message, or are you doing that now?
Well, I think all of us men, every time that we are, active in our kids' life, we are living it. And as a black man, there's that propaganda that we're not there for our kids, whatnot, but that's propaganda. Now, I'm a publicist. I'm a consultant. I understand propaganda, Orson Welles to the beginning. But the propaganda and the stereotypes are actually wrong. And I know New York Times has done stories on it. CNN has done stories that they show black men are actually more involved in their children's lives than any other. And I think that's because so many of us saw or had it happen to us where there was no father around, where we said, we're not going to be that dad. And I think dads get a bad rap of all colors because the media out there, they get paid for ratings. And I know a lot of dads who are, above and beyond. I know some single dads. I don't call myself a single father because my wife does come home. And whether she comes home for 2 or 3 hours out of a day after working, 18 hours or whatever, I still get a little bit of help. And I've seen, the single dads push. And that's just what they do. And same thing with single moms. So since we're talking about dads, I say it's a myth because the research shows we're more involved. Now, you can always twist research and someone can say, well, what about if you're in prison and this and that? We're not talking about that. We're talking about the dads who are free, taking care of business. And when I'm at the park, more and more, I find more dads, especially black ones, with their kids, and the moms are, whether they're working or if they're resting at home, it's a myth. So every day we're killing that propaganda and that myth. And I don't think we're special at this point because I see so many fathers do it of all colors.
Diversity Dads, just making sure that there are myths out there, and I'm sure that you all know them, but we are doing what we can to eliminate them, regardless of if you're black or white, Hispanic, what have you. We're out there taking care of our kids, and let it be known, let it be shown that we're doing the right thing. So, Kellen, just to switch gears a little bit, you have your 2 fantastic daughters, and I know there's a lot of exciting moments, but what's the one thing that has you most excited about being a dad?
For me, it's being able to see that the methods that I'm using to raise them are working. And what I mean by that is I take a very hands-on approach. I don't want to say sensitive, but I'm being very direct with my kids to the point where I'm letting them know you can get this for yourself. There's no reason for me to pour cereal for a 7-year-old. A 7-year-old has responsibilities in my house, and I like that on a Saturday when I do get to sleep in. When I do get to wake up and I see my wife and, she's right by my side and she doesn't have to get up at 5 a.m, that I can hear the TV going maybe. I hear the cereal or the waffle dinger going bing, bing, and that I don't have to get up, especially after the diapers stage. I just got one out of diapers and it's my last set of diapers.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm just happy to see that the discipline that I'm putting in them is working and that they're able to be self-sufficient because I know I'm not going to be here forever. And at the end of the day, we want our kids to be able to be strong and successful without us.
Diversity Dads is so key, what Kellen just said, as far as just making sure your child is sufficient and can take care of themselves. But Kellen, what I'm struggling with, and I'll give you a little insight on what we're going through, my wife and I, our young daughter she's still fairly young, but how do we know when to give her enough responsibility to take care of herself? And I know a lot of dads feel that way out there as well, as far as just you want to give them responsibility, but you also want to make sure that you're protecting them and that they're safe. How do you balance the two?
Well, the old school way, this is the Laval ball. I'm training you, and while I'm training you, I'm watching you. And so I can't just leave you, if this was Laval ball on the court to say, you're going to do my routine. I have to watch you. And after I watch you enough times, you don't want me to watch you, and you'll just do it without me because you want to be great. And, for all the media that they talk about Laval Ball, he's very involved with these kids. People don't see him abusing his kids at all or his family at all. I was hands-on. My oldest, I've watched her make waffles before I let her just make waffles. I watched her pour cereal and milk and whatever she wants to do. And when I even have her empty out recently the dishwasher, I put all the knives and the sharp stuff away, and I watch her put up my glasses that I don't want broken, but I know at some point they're going to slip and I'm going to have to come in there and clean up and, whatnot. So it's about the training, and you just don't let them do it without watching them, but you watch them so they know you're watching. And, to all the dads out there, I watch my kids even when they don't think they're watching. Drop them off at school. I peek around the corner, drop them off at a vacation Bible school. I come in and I'm peeking around the corner, making sure everything is all right, because I'm really protective over my daughters. If I had sons, I probably wouldn't be as protective. But with women and what we know about everything that's going on in the world, I'm watching. So watch your kids, and once they get it right on the 20th time or whatever you feel comfortable, you'll know once you know. But pouring cereal, the worst thing that could happen is a spill of the milk. And to me, that's not a big deal. Kids are going to spill.
Diversity Dads is allowing your kids to fail forward. So giving them that opportunity, giving them that space to make decisions, to see the world, to experience different things from your household, as Kellen is doing, or just in life in general when they become of age to make those decisions. So, Kellen, so many proud moments. I know that you're proud when you seen that milk go into that bowl without spilling a drop. So, yeah, right? So I know that's probably just one proud moment, but what would you say is your proudest moment thus far about being a dad?
My proudest moment it's the everyday stuff. It's the everyday of seeing good grades coming into the house. Even though the grades, it won't get you into college at this point, it's also seeing that messes and the shoes are sorted out before the TV is even thought of being turned on. Those are my proudest moments because it lets me know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I hear so many issues with dads outside of my house and people say, well, how do you do that? How did you at that age make your oldest be that responsible? I gave her the responsibility, but what I credit in everything is God and my belief. And I'm a believer in Christ. But when I see a lot of turmoil, and I've worked for CPS, I've worked in group homes with kids, I paid a lot of my way through school, surviving, doing that. When you don't do things the right way, when you have kids out of wedlock, when you have, multiple kids out of wedlock, life gets harder. Doesn't mean your kids are going to be terrible. Doesn't mean anything, because you can go through divorces. That puts a strain on kids, and there's research for that. So that's not me beating up anybody. But when you aren't following the principles of the old school, for me, the Holy Scriptures, for others, it may be something. But one thing for all believers of whatever they believe in, no one ever tells you leave your wife. No one ever tells you, go to the club and get someone impregnated and then go get 2 people impregnated and spread your seed like an evangelist. So a lot of problems that we have with dads is that people aren't listening to the wisdom that the old people told them. Find a good mate, make sure you're equally yoked and you guys are on the same accord, and then go through the steps. But when people want to have one night stands and say, oh, I can raise a kid, by myself and I don't need the woman or I don't need the man or whatever, there's always problems. There's more problems. And research, data, when people research that proves that. That's not my opinion. That's not from the book of Kellen. But for me, the Holy Scriptures tells us right and wrong. And I see people doing right all the time. And it doesn't mean you'll be perfect, but you at least have a roadmap and you don't have to guess, and your kids don't have to be stressed because you're already blessed.
And Kellen, you talk about old school versus new school. What have you done to help some of the younger fathers that have made the bad choices or unpopular choices, have a child at a young age or do God knows what? Are you doing anything in your community to help them? Or
I attend a men's ministry in Seattle called Dads right off of Rainier. Marvin Charles runs it, and it's for men at every Wednesday, starting at 9:30, goes to about 11:30, and men talking about men issues in a manly way of all races. I mean, everybody is in there, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, and talking about openly things. As men, we can't ever just kind of open up. And what I do in my everyday life and what I also do at Dad's is if I hear a story that connects, I'm going to say something because I'm fed all day by older men, by elders who I can ask, hey, this situation is happening. And I hear other people's story and I'm like, hey, how would you do that differently? Because some dads were too strict and they ran their daughters into the streets and they did God knows what in the streets. So I don't want to be so strict where I'm forcing you to rebel. But what I do is every man, especially dads, should have at least one mentee. I keep a few, if not more, where these mentees can call me in my young age of 36 and say, well, how did you do that? Because I call on other men. Now, there is a warning. When men give you advice and they take time, and I'm talking about an hour or if it's a day, to give you advice to try to help you, if you don't follow that advice and you keep stumbling into the same thing, usually it's another woman, and that you're bouncing from one woman to another woman, then I treat you like a client and you have to call me on my hotline number that I use for my business, because we all really got the same advice somewhere down the line. Some of us got it at 2 and some of us got it at 22. But if you're not listening to the advice that people give you, you need to pay, because that means you don't respect people's time. So I'm always there for dads, and dads can reach out to me, and, KC at CPRfirm.com. That's my email. I mean, I'm always accessible because part of my life is ministry. I mean, I've written a book. My first book was on the Christian industry, and I'm there to help people. And I wrote that book to help people, not make money, even though some people say your book is $400 online. That's not me selling it. That's a reseller selling it. My book is a lot less. It's about $9 online. But I gave away contacts. And I think that as dads, we need to give away contacts, like I did with talking about in Seattle, Washington, the Dads Organization. That's an organization that can help dads, whether you're in a great place or you're struggling. And a lot of people think you have to be in a terrible place to get the therapy. But this is just men talking the way men need to talk. Name a place where we can talk and express ourselves without being called chauvinist, without being called caveman. We're talking like men. And usually it's not just about women. It's about how our dads treated us, whether it be good or bad.
Kellen, that's amazing. I love it. Just helping dads with the Dads Organization to overcome obstacles. There's always obstacles. There's always things that's going on in life. And that kind of brings us to our next question. What would you say is your biggest obstacle that you've overcome thus far from being a dad?
My biggest obstacle, there's so many, I couldn't name them all. For the dads who are out there and saying, well, but I never could open up a business or this and that. I didn't wake up with the business, and I didn't wake up with any support for a business ever in my life. None of the closest people gave me the financial or emotional support that you would think. And I've been through what a lot of the dads have gone through. And we could go down a list of lines. I'll say, been there, done that. And some of that is so personal, it would take, a whole nother show to really explain, been there, done that. Almost lost everything because of the bad decisions I made. Some because, the market was terrible, whatnot, and there were no jobs. And for every job that you get, you had to put in over 100 applications. And I have a master's degree saying that. And I know I'm smart and great at what I do. And so I would tell dads, whatever your situation is, you have no money, you have $2 to your name, been there, done that. Check to see if that $2 of your name, if you have Jordans on your feet, or if you have Ferragamos on your feet, because that's where your money's going. But for dads who are really struggling, there's a way out. You just need to link up with some positive people, because for every negative thing that you hear about yourself, whether that's your woman telling you that, or whether that's yourself telling you that, or your mother, you need to hear about 7 positive things that's research to really bounce back. You have to be tough. You have to be a man. I came up in the 80s where we used to really, knuckle it up wherever you were at, whether it's the hood or the suburbs. And one thing about fighting and boxing, you might get knocked down, but you got to get back up. And only the strong can survive. So in that ring, I was always the strong, whether that ring was on the street or it was in the ring, because we grew up doing all type of boxing and martial arts. You got to fight. And for the younger dads, it'll probably be difficult to fight, because I think fighting now is like taboo, where, you can't knuckle up. We as kids, we used to put on boxing gloves and just go in the street, and no one ever called the police and no one tried to break it up because we were playing. I've got my front 2 teeth almost knocked completely out to where I needed to have these fake ones put in. But you got to fight in life, and nothing's going to be given to you. But we're in America where you can go from zero to a hero real quick, but you have to know where to look for that opportunity. And so many times immigrants come over here and they're ready to fight harder than we are. So if you're ready to fight, again, contact me, kc@cprfirm.com, and we'll do the best to link you up wherever you are in the country with someone who can help you out, because there's so many organizations. The hard part is those organizations don't have the marketing and the PR to hire even a company like mine sometimes. And Seattle's expensive. Life can be expensive and it takes money, but this is what I do professionally to spread a message. So, dads, don't give up is the number one thing. I used to work for CPS. I saw a lot of dads fight for their kids, even if they were paying $20 a month in child support. A year later, they had custody of their kids because somewhere down the line, the mom had messed up. Usually it was drugs and alcohol. So keep pushing.
Kellen, that's amazing, man. And that brings us to our next question, which you kind of answered it already. To all our diversity dads out there, if there was one piece of advice you can give about fatherhood, what would that be? And I'm assuming it would be don't give up, right?
Well, it would be don't give up, but the Bible says faith without works is dead. So some people say don't give up. I got the faith. I know what's going to happen. But any inmate who has done numerous bids, I have a cousin just got out for 25 years, 3 strikes law, thanks to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. He never gave up and he fought his case and he's home. When you come back home, there is no purse for you. There is no money, but he didn't give up. You just can't give up, but you got to put the action. He was in the law books for 25 years of his life. And he accepted, which a lot of men have to accept, our faults. We have so many faults. We have to know our ugly in everything. If you know you're ugly, you'll hustle even harder for your family and for what's right. But you have to put in the work. So you got to have the faith, you got to have the works, and you got to know that you're not perfect. And if you think you are, you really need a reality check. But the best advice that I got before becoming a father at a father's class I took voluntarily at one of the hospitals, which everyone has access to in this country, thank God, is as a man what your boiling point is, and you'll get to that point at some point with your kids. And when you get to that point, walk away, which some men have the hardest time of walking away because they can either verbally or physically correct any problem they think. Leave it at that, because some of your words will kill your kids' self-esteem. Some of your actions can break bones, and, people have killed their kids just in rage. So just walk away and get in a good space and tell your woman, hopefully you have a woman, let her know there's sometimes I just got to back up. And that's not weakness. That's strength to control that type of an emotion.
Being open and honest, diversity dads, being open and honest about how you feel in the heat of being a parent, let alone life in general, right? Back away, assess the situation, and then come back and attack it. So, Kellen, man, you have dropped so many knowledge bombs on this interview. It's ridiculous, man. We appreciate it. So if the diversity dads out there, they want to get a hold of you, how can they do that? Through social media, or is there any literature that they can read? How can they get at you?
Yes, all the social media is Kellen, Kellen, Cash, spelled with a K, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. And if they want to like my Facebook page, it's actually Kellen Coleman, that they can see that Coleman spelling, which is the normal spelling, when they go to LondonandSydney.com, or if they go to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, they'll see Kellen and Berthena Coleman wrote the book, and, they can reach out to me like that. And, you'll usually get me. I do have a team of people who sometimes follow and, answer for me, but 9 out of 10 times it's me, because I like it like that, at least right now. I'll tell any dad who wants to put a smile on their kid's face, especially who's a minority, create something that your kids can look at themselves at. There are less than 15% of the books for children's books are made of kids of color, period. For African Americans, the majority of people who write African American children's books are not African American. So there's a big void, and we need to step up. It's one thing to complain and say what there's not, but it's what are you doing? And it may not be children's books, but it may be glasses or some type of fashion. I tried fashion. It was too expensive for me. So as soon as I got the first couple pieces, I was done for now, because I'm like, this costs too much. But we need to create our narrative and make sure. I found even a Black illustrator. That was important to me, to show you can work with Black folks and they can do an excellent job. And a big shout out to Ron Bryant. And a big shout out to Brandon Richardson, who was our editor for the book, he's been working with me since our Grambling State days, over a decade. And before he asks for money, he says, what do you need? So they can contact me, Kellen Coleman on Facebook, Kellen Cash, and, maybe you'll have something in like a description type box or below, but I'm accessible to share what I have while I'm here, whether that's on earth in this country or in this great city of Seattle.
Fantastic. And I think we all agree of the narrative of this interview. Dads, just go out there, step it up, and create your own narrative for yourself and your family. Great stuff, Kellen. We want to just thank you so much for being on Diversity Dad. What a wonderful interview, wonderful energy that you've given. And to all the diversity dads out there, I want to sign off by saying, let's learn together, let's grow together, let's be dads together. Peace.
We appreciate you joining us on this episode of Diversity Dad. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and head to diversitydad.com to leave your comments and feedback so we can provide you with more stories of triumph and motivation. Until next time, remember, let's learn together, let's grow together, let's be dads together. We are all Diversity Dads.